my people, as the hot, it don't happen though. This one a debate between Labour Party, PDP and APC. When I watch the way Labour Party take two APC and then destroy PDP. All Labour Party representatives, they are too educated. Yes, my brother family, please do me a favor. Just share this video and hit the like button so that my Facebook for recommend this video. Give other people when they see how they say yes, Peter Obi in a sellable market while the rest PD APC. If they defend, then you go sound stupid.
Back to Robin Minds is the national youth debate, and we're switching our conversations now to unemployment and education. And we'll have a set of brand new speakers representing Team Obi is Yetunde Abisoye. Thanks for being here today. Also for Team Tinubu is Tunde Rufai. And for Team Atiku is Jude Feromi Adejomo. Thanks for joining us today. Now, the rules are different this time. I'm going to ask questions. You have 2 minutes to answer, and then the respondents have a minute to rebut, if at all. As usual, we did Lucky did before this segment, and the Labour Party representative goes first. Starting with you now. Nigeria currently has the second highest unemployment rate globally at 33%, projected to get to 37% by the end of this year, regardless of who wins the election. How is that going to be reversed by your candidate?
Okay, good afternoon, Ebuka. Good afternoon, the studio audience, and amazing afternoon to the viewers at home. Thank you for having us today. Like Ebuka said, the projected statistics for unemployment rate in Nigeria is to skyrocket from 33% to 37% at the end of the year, irrespective of who wins presidency. But then I'd like to go with antecedents like my lead speaker said earlier. Anyone that invests in education is investing in capacity building. I'll take this cue from a speech, a statement by Nelson Mandela that says education is the weapon with which you can change the world. Not just the world, a society. And we can see that Principal Mr. Peter Obi has done this before with Anambra State. Now, it is being seen that the rate of unemployment that we have in Nigeria today is as a result, one, on lack of capacity building, unfavorable environment to actually run businesses, leading to businesses shutting down, policies that are not enabling, irrespective of the payback. That is the presidential policies built in terms of being able to register businesses, in terms of maybe VADs, that's you declaring your assets, in terms of tax declaration and payment of tax. That is not enough. No economy can thrive on insecurity. No economy can thrive on the degradable state of education. And this is what we've experienced in the last 7 years. If there's anyone that has a 7-point agenda that the current president of administration came into power with, we can tell, rather than move us to the positive side of the radar, rather gone to the negative side, and it's getting deeper every day. My principal, Mr. Peter Obi, has done this before in Anambra State, a state that is being plunged with kidnapping, with high level of insecurity, violence. He's been able to engage favorably the youth, thereby contributing to the economy and reducing unemployment. Give us a chance. Thank you.
Now, same question to you, Team Tinubu, because there seems to be a constant need by your candidate to distance himself from the present administration. But in the eyes of a lot of Nigerians, this is a continuation of the same party. And a lot of these statistics have come from this government. Why then should people believe that anything will be different?
Fighting unemployment, I think my candidate has demonstrated that with what we have in Lagos. That is why everybody moving to Lagos in their thousands. And as you can see, Nigeria of today, the current administration of Muhammadu Buhari is, we cannot shy away from it. It's our party, we belong to that party, but bringing the two candidates, the two personalities involved, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and President Muhammadu Buhari. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has the capacity and the capability to ensure that we fight this menace called unemployment head on. And he has demonstrated that in the past, and he's still going to do that at a larger scale. I can remember vividly in 2000 when Asiwaju, in 1999 when he was elected as governor of Lagos State. In 2000, the first employment opportunity that was given to Lagosians was 2,000 employment opportunity. And those who were part of those who gained that employment today are those who built the master plan of Lagos. Because of the initiative, the vision of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that master plan that was built in 2000 is now manifesting in 2022. That shows that you need to put on a long scale for you to fight unemployment head on.
Thank you very much. Timatiku, now Nigerian presidents have a history of sort of socialist schemes. Recently, we have the End Power, Trade and Money, and all of that. But your candidate seems to lean more towards government getting their hands on things like that. How then do you get Nigerians out of this unemployment quagmire without government's involvement? What is the plan?
First things first, I personally believe, and the candidate of our party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, personally believes strongly that it is not the business of government to create jobs. This is medieval thinking that at best is colonial. In those days, the colonial masters came, gave you an education, and told you that you have to get ready for a job of a clerk in the office. That is not the vision of a country that is interested in productivity and increasing the economy. It is the business, it is the sole business of the private sector to create jobs. Having said that, in the last 7 years, what is clear is that people are not just losing jobs. There are students and graduates who are leaving school and do not have jobs, entering the labor market without the ability to get jobs. There are those who are within the labor market and they are losing their jobs because of the economic policy of this APC government for the last 7 years. This is the baseline. Now, when you come for the next 8 years, and I think that this might be an academic exercise, but for listeners at home and for listeners here, we need to begin to imagine what the next 8 years will look like. If we go into the next 8 years with this kind of thinking, that it is government's duty to create jobs, then what we will have is government creating social welfare policies like the ones that you mentioned, putting a strain on government revenue and the cost of governance. And that's what we have in a way that the debt that we have increases, the domestic debt we have increases. And because I have to round up, 4 things is our pathway. 1, there's going to be a schools to job pathway. Secondly, entrepreneurship will be a very, very major part of our solution. And I can go on and on, but I'm sure we'll get there.
Now, how different when you hear that in the candidate's plan? Does he believe in government creating jobs or the private sector solely, like he said? Is that an idea that you think works for your candidate?
Our 7-pact agenda with Nigeria actually prove how ready we are to hit the ground running and improve on the economic capacity of Nigerians. One of them is the agrarian formula we're going to use, which is enhancing and putting into maximum use the vast land and arable lands we have in the north. Peter B has said this over and over again under the Labour Party, that the North can comfortably feed Nigeria and even increase our exports. We are at shortage of dollars because our imports exceed our exports, and that is what no antecedent has actually done before. Let's not take out the fact that we are emphasizing on consumption to production. No economy will ever thrive when you have high rates of consumption and your production is at the barest minimum. So with my principal, Mr. Peter Gregory Obi, we are laying emphasis on the fact that we will make our economy very viable to attract foreign direct investment, and when we have international bodies coming into the system, we definitely can increase and reduce unemployment.
Tim Tinubu, one of the biggest criticisms, of course, which kind of leads on from what he said, is your candidate did talk about how many million youth he wants recruited into the military. A lot of controversy has come out of that. You know, still talking about government being such a huge employer of labor. How is that viable, you think, in a time like this?
Well, thank you very much. The government of Muhammadu Buhari has been recruiting 10,000 young persons into the Nigerian force. And Tinubu rightly said that he will be recruiting 50,000. This is just to boost the number of people who goes into that force. And just yesterday, the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria just signed another order to give 10,000 young persons to be recruited into the Nigerian police. And these are part of the ways the government is trying to curb unemployment that have been on the rise side right from 1999, that both my fellow colleagues here are trying to put on the box of the APC. But we'll accept it because we are determined to take the nation to the next level. We have fight unemployment in various aspects. We fought unemployment in the area of agriculture. Within 1999 to 2015, we have just 10 rice mills across the federation. As of 2015 to 2022, we have about 68. That's about 680% increase, and which we are still doing more in the area of NSIP, social investment programs. We've given trader money, we've given market money, and we are still giving more money.
Trying to build a link between power and unemployment, you know, building entrepreneurship. Is there a plan in that in your space or your candidate space for that?
The idea that individuals and groups should generate power on their own, that's not how Zambia did it. Zambia now boasts of, like my fellow debater said, boasts of 24-hour power supply, but it was government incentivized and private sector led. Much more importantly is that every facet of or every policy direction that you see from the PDP is layered on the core ingredient of restructuring the country. In Nigeria today, it is very, very difficult for you to have a project that is supplying power to a particular state, because that's what the law is. When you restructure Nigeria, you begin to see that, if, for example, in Gombe State, so where you have a lot of sunlight, it's easier to get private sector partners, invest in solar investment and infrastructure, and generate power for Gombe State. That will only happen in a restructured Nigeria. And to conclude, the only candidate here that has the political capability to restructure this country is Atiku Abubakar.
Thank you very much. Let's go on with education now, because we have other sectors to go into. Unfortunately, we have to talk education now. Let me start with you. Before we get into primary education, well, let's start with the ASU conversation. There's been this agreement since 2009, which continues to put us in this situation that we're in now. Is there a plan? Because the conversation is, does government hands off tertiary education, which makes it more expensive and less accessible, or does government continue to be involved and spend all this money to subsidize education so that more people have access to it? But does that not make these strikes inevitable? Is there a plan for tertiary education?
One of the things I'd like to address is an individual who came into power when the educational system of the state he was governing was about 26th in ranking and moved to first. You would know in the heart of the person is a high value for education. I await anyone to counter that achievement and tell me they've done better than that. Other than some party who has the most expensive university in Nigeria, talking about the PDP presidential candidate. And I cannot say significantly because I've lived all my life in Lagos, I cannot tell the greatest impact that presidential candidate of APC has in education, well, except I'm paying for WAEC. Well, that can sound exciting to people who couldn't afford about 1,250 naira to pay for WAEC. I don't have the figures right, but my mother, despite being a divorcee, a single mother with 3 children, she paid for my WAEC during that period. She could afford to. So I didn't see that. I can't see that as an achievement. So if you're telling me about ASU, I would say, my president has said it, there is negotiations on the table. Globally, I'd rather pitch on the part that the federal government should take hands off ASU fully, make education more expensive, but more attractive, much more investment through private sector and ownership of different departments, which is very, very much viable. We've seen it done globally. Johns Hopkins University, MIT, you have global industries who own several departments in this school. It's expensive, yes, but is it effective? Absolutely. So if second hands of tertiary education would make Nigeria educational system more formidable and effective, then so be it. But the fact is this, we would never put our youth in homes for 8 months while the political leaders are graduating their students in global universities, international universities, and have the guts to even snap the pictures and put on social media, shoving it on our throats that we should take it.
The APC candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has said he's not going to take the government hand away from funding the tertiary institution. What we are going to do as a party is to restructure the tertiary institutions and inject more funding. And this time around, this will solve the problem of the ASU issue. Don't forget there is a benchmark for every nation on budgeting for education. The funding will be coming from the federal purse as part of our budget preparation for every tertiary institutions. There is a UNESCO benchmark of 26% for tertiary education system. This, our administration has been improving upon from 1.5% to 6.5%. Now is at 6.8%, if I am correct at that statistics at the moment. But what we are going to do and what we are doing is that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu in the master plan for the Renew Hope master plan is that we are going to ensure by 2025 we will meet that UNESCO benchmark to fund education by 26% of our annual budget, and that will solve the issue of ASU and other tertiary institution menace that we have that is before us.
Thank you very much. 630 days is the longest time that ASU has spent going on strike in recent years under the All Progressives Congress administration. 630 days. Within these days, the All Progressives Congress, which, like we have all alluded to here, the candidate of the APC is trying to delineate himself from, did absolutely different things that did not solve this problem up until we spent this long time. That's one. Secondly, is that the proposals that you hear candidates put forward is not based on restructuring the country. And when you restructure education system in Nigeria, what the People's Democratic Party has in plan, and you can read our policy documents, is that the tertiary institutions are going to be devolved to the states. But not just that. It will also come along with the devolvement of resources to each of the states in a way that they are autonomous. And that's a solution that solves this issue about hassle. And we can go on and on about, the different problems of the unionists, but in a restructured Nigeria where everybody has a sense of belonging and they have the resources to deploy for that system, it works.
So I want to come to you now because your positions are completely opposite. You think government should hands off tertiary education and make it more qualitative, I believe, even if it makes it a little less accessible. He believes government needs to put more funding into tertiary education and make it even more accessible, and he thinks that would end ASU strikes. What's your take on it?
I interacted with the school directly. I paid for the application fees. That is full hands-off of the federal government from education. I believe the crux of education is actually the foundation. Universal basic education, secondary education. And that is what our people enjoyed in the 60s. Education, most of the people that had even plunged us into this quagmire enjoyed up to free ticket meals in university. We're not asking for that. We are saying give us a very strong foundation institution in form of primary and secondary education. Leave tertiary institution to private partnership. It will work.
Okay. Why should government continue to put money, like she said, in a system that isn't working as it is?
Just like my candidate is not going to take his hand off funding of the tertiary institution, we have equally created students' loan to engage all the students so that 4 years course will not be 8 years course, and at the same time they'll be able to fund it. We are creating that so that we can create a system whereby there will be mutual understanding between the school, the student, and the bank that will be funding that capacity. What are these?
Nancy Matiko, just not very clear on what the position is, because we have two polar opposites here, it looks like. Are you somewhere in the middle? Because like she said, your principal owns a private university. Is that the plan to make Nigeria's, because there's a lot of talk about privatization from your candidate. Is that what's going to happen across board with universities? Or are you also going to toe the line of more funding for schools?
We are going to restructure Nigeria. That restructuring will impact on the education system. In a restructured Nigeria, you have each of the states controlling all the institutions. And I really hope that we get a chance to talk about basic education before we leave here today. Because that's what dovetails into entrepreneurship and, for example, the implementation of the Startup Act that the PDP is going to do when we get into government. But the point here is, my fellow debater here, the candidate of the APC, said on a rally that students are going to spend 8 years in school.
4 years.
And that they should call him a bastard if that does not happen. I can guarantee you that under a PDP government, no student will spend 8 years in school for a 4 years course or a 5 years course. And you can call me bastard if that happens.
Let's move on now to basic education. Because the figures say that over 20 million school children in Nigeria are out of school. Or at least those of school age, which is the highest in the world. Basic education seems not so basic anymore and accessible for a lot of Nigerians. We know there's so many promises, especially from state governments, about making education free. We've had an Almajiri project in the past. We don't know what's happening with it. What's the plan of your candidate to take that number at least significantly lower than it is right now?
Please, Nigerians, again, go to the media. What was the state of primary schools when Peter Obi became the governor of the state? A sorry state. Today, the schools he built, we can take pictures and compare and contrast. With the acclaimed Lagos, we glorified accession to a certain individual who routed the fund of that state to his pocket. No school in Lagos built by the government, of even Jakonde as a good person, can compete favorably with the schools that Peter Obi built in. Just check in terms of quality, disposition of infrastructures, check in terms of the capacity, the things that are built outside, and say that state-owned government schools managed by missionaries are competing nationally and are winning at the school fees about millions of naira. That answers the question. We will build a better universal basic education for Nigeria.
I know we talked a lot about fact checking here, but we can't fact check pictures here, so I guess it's up to you guys, the viewers, to compare and contrast.
Thank you. Somebody who has actually lived most of his life in Lagos is talking about taking picture in Anambra. That's to tell you the level at which they cannot even promote. Can you allow me speak, please? That is to tell you the level at which they cannot even promote the state in which they reside and make their ends meet. Lagos has been a model. Over 10 states have come to Lagos to understudy the universal basic education system in Lagos. There is an Eco-Excel system that is working for children in Lagos public schools. There are meals provided for pupils in various schools. In fact, government is, at some levels, government provides free school buses. These are things that Lagos state government is doing that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu gave as a template. And successful government that have been coming after him has continued to roll on that template. Now she is telling me to go to Anambra, where I cannot even travel to on a Monday or on a Tuesday to go and take a picture in the public school. Come to Lagos on any day, you can take pictures at the model schools and the Millennium School of Lagos. Thank you very much.
I'll say a few things as fast as possible. Right now, Nigeria has 47.3% of the global out-of-school children in the world, more than India, China. And if we follow what my colleague here said, the reason why we have this so much children out of school is because they've been coming to Lagos to copy this model. Lagos today is the third largest state of out-of-school children in Nigeria. This model doesn't work. It doesn't. And for the last 8 years, for every full year that APC has spent in government, more than 1 million children have gone out of school. In Lagos here, in fact, experts analyze and say that for every 10 children that Lagos State tries to put in school, 6 drops out. These policy models don't work. I'll tell you what works, which is going to come under a PDP government. 1, we're going to improve access, improve infrastructure, and improve the quality of education. But much more importantly, and I think this is very important, we need to be preparing our children for a digital future. We're going to build a Nigeria with a digital economy, and our children are going to have to be competitive in that economy. That's what our plan is.
Buhari has been recruiting 10,000 Nigerians into the Nigerian force. It was actually the police, and the recruitment has been stalled due to an ongoing conflict between the Inspector General and the Police Service Commission. The case is in the Supreme Court, so that's not ongoing as we speak. 16 billion spent on power in the past. The claim has been repeated over and over again, but disputed by everybody who's been involved in this years leading up to this. So it's unverifiable. Just wanted to put that out there. Anambra State moved from 26th to 1st in education. True, but that's with WAEC and NECO results. So we don't know whether that encompasses entire education. But it is, I guess, almost true. 10 states came to learn from Lagos on universal basic education. Couldn't verify that. So we don't know if that's true or not. And finally, Lagos is 3rd highest in out-of-school children. The statistics we have says it's 18. So just wanted to clear that up.